kommer upp på scenen. Och det är ju eran kärlek, eran oljud. Så gör som så att... Hur högt kan vi låta? Låt mig få höra. Jag tror att våran gäst förtjänar bättre. Ni kan högre, kom igen nu. Hur högt kan vi låta? Precis så där ska vi göra, för han är född i Kalifornien. Och han började sin karriär redan som 12-åring. Och han har arbetat med flera Hollywood-storheter, såsom Richard Gere, Charles Bronson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, bara för att nämna några. Vi har sett honom i bland annat Charlies Änglar, Nord och Syd, Criminal Minds och Stranger Things. Men många av oss kanske minns honom som ödlan Willy i V. Men för merparten är han förmodligen känd som Freddy Krueger. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Robert Englund!
You are all my children now. Hello, Sweden. Hello, Malmö.
Welcome, Robert. I just told the audience that they can raise their hand and if they have any questions, and we'll try to get them answered.
Q&A. I just want to take a moment to advertise a little bit. I have a show on Apple TV Plus, animated. It comes from Steven Spielberg's DreamWorks, and the show is called Curses. And I've noticed so many beautiful families here in Malmö at the con the last couple of days, that this particular project of mine is something that families can enjoy together. And it's called Curses, and I play the terrible old grandfather who stole art from all over the world for his private collection. And the children of the family must now return it in order to remove the curse on the family. So check it out. You guys will like it. You can also hear me, not see me, but hear me in Dragon's Blood as well, the anime. So check those out. And I think we should just jump into a Q&A now.
Yeah, sure. And why not start with one of my first personal question, because we are in Sweden right now, and if I understand correct, Sweden has a special place in your heart, right?
Well, I'm Swedish, England. I believe it means, translated, a stand of trees in a field.
Correct.
Okay, and that's my family. They were doctors and dentists from near Stockholm, and then I think that one of my grandmothers was Swedish and Danish. The name, I believe, is Jørgensen or Jorgensen, which is, I think, Danish. Yeah, I'm not positive. But yeah, and when I came here the first time, I remember going to a restaurant down by the canal, and they had all the different mustards with the herring, and I liked every one of the herring sauces and all the herring, and I knew that was my Swedish DNA saying, you love herring, you love herring. But every time I come, whether it's Malmö or up in the north, I have an extended family in Gothenburg, and I did a wonderful show in Helsingborg. Yes. And on a clear day, you can see Hamlet's castle across the water at Elsinore in Denmark, but also lovely Stockholm. I must come back. You must invite me to a show in the summer so that I can get up to the archipelago. I've been dying to see that. It looks so enchanting. Anyway, we should probably do some Q&A.
And I have one my first question is from the beginning of your career, because we're going to talk about like a circle here. I heard that the laugh from the audience in Pinocchio and the lightly dressed ladies from Aladdin got you hooked into acting from the beginning. Is that true?
Well, I want to say I became an actor because I loved Henrik Ibsen, and I loved Ingmar Bergman, and I loved William Shakespeare, and I wanted to be an artist. but that would be a lie. I was in children's theater, and I went along with this beautiful older girl. It was all teenagers from 12 to 19, and professional theater. And I thought I was going to be an usher, or sweeping up the stage, and building scenery or painting scenery. And they asked me to audition, and I got Peter Pan, Aladdin. I did Hansel in Hansel and Gretel. I did Pinocchio, my first special effects makeup. I had the big nose for Pinocchio. And I remember one night doing Pinocchio, and I would run across the stage, and the Indians would chase me, and then turn around and I'd run back this way, and I had arrows sticking in me, sticking all in my, and because the Indians were after me and I'm made of wood, if you shoot me with an arrow, it sticks in my wood, it doesn't hurt me. I'm Pinocchio, I'm a puppet. And what I did was I put styrofoam inside my Tyrolean vest, and I put styrofoam down by my butt. And every time I ran across the stage, I stuck more arrows in. And finally, I even had one in my mouth, like that. And I would stop running, and I'd look at the audience like, they can't hurt me. And I got a big laugh. And as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy, that laugh is what really hooked me. And then I realized, even though I was small, and I had curly blonde hair, and I looked like Harpo Marx, that I was the star. I was Peter Pan. I was Hansel in Hansel and Gretel. I was Pinocchio. I was Aladdin and his magic lamp. And I had what? Star power. I had power. And for the first time in my life, the girls were interested in me. And they would curl my hair. They helped me dye my hair black for Aladdin. And they curled my hair. And the girls, the older girls, these are girls who are 16 and 17, and they're teaching me, and I'm 13 years old, and they're teaching me how to blow smoke rings with my cigarette, and they have their harem girl. They have their harem girl costumes on, which are like bikinis, and they're all standing around me in the makeup room, teaching me how to smoke a cigarette cool, and we're listening to West Side Story on the record player and rock and roll. And I said, boy, this is for me. So I wish I did it to become an artist, but I did it for the beautiful girls. And the cheap laugh.
About Pinocchio, as I said, we're going to see if we can have a circle here, because this year, in October, the film Pinocchio Unstrung will premiere, where you play cricket.
I have been asked to do it, but there's been no more communication. So either they're still making it, and I'm going to come in at the last minute, or I'm not going to do it. I don't know. My agents and lawyers do this middle work. I know I was offered the part, and I know that their Winnie the Pooh was very successful. But perhaps there was some problem, a legal issue, or maybe it's a timing thing. I have a big event in October, and maybe there was a conflict. So I can't say for sure if that's even going to happen. I have not done it yet. But again, you have to understand, this is stop motion. I think it's stop motion, which means it takes a long time.
And you're
like
credited.
Wallace and Gromit.
And you're already credited on the internet for that.
Well, they asked me to do it, and then they were talking to my people. That's how we talk in Hollywood. My people, your people. Let's do lunch. It's Hollywood jargon. But so I don't know, and I'm disappointed only because I thought it would be real interesting to be part of that project. I worked in another project with giant puppets as well. That has a really strange name like Apocalypto, and it's very strange too. But I like working with the young people and doing the new kind of projects and technologies. So maybe it'll still happen. I don't know.
Well, talking about Apocalypto, let's go back a bit to the Apocalypse Now, because I heard when you were there to audition for a part in that, and you found a script somewhere. Do you know where I'm going?
Well, yes, but I wanted desperately to be in Apocalypse Now. I read the script, I adored Francis Ford Coppola, and I finally got an interview, I got an audition, and I wanted to be up for the chef, the cook. He has that great line, "Effing tiger!" And that's played by the great Freddy, who was a contract player with Zoetrope, which is Coppola's company. So I didn't get that part. And for a minute, they thought maybe I would be right for the surfer because I really surf. But they went with one of the young, Sam Bottoms, one of the young Bottoms family of actors. He was much younger than me, although I looked pretty young. But I had worn military clothes, and I hadn't shaved, so I had a scruffy, 5 o'clock shadow. And I was all tan from surfing, and I had long blonde curly hair. And the producer of Apocalypse Now walked me across the hall into this room. He said, "George is making a space movie over here." And I went, "What, huh?" He goes, "Lucas, George Lucas." Well, I loved George Lucas before Star Wars because I loved American Graffiti, which is a movie that really speaks to my generation. So I went in, and they were having trouble casting Han Solo. They wanted Han Solo to be much older at that time, older even than Harrison, kind of like an uncle that comes for the holidays and lets the kids smoke marijuana. He was supposed to be older, yeah. And but no one was saying yes to it. It was a space movie. They didn't, George Lucas wasn't an icon yet. And so they looked at me for 1 minute. I was not up for the part. I did not get the part. They took a Polaroid. Remember Polaroid cameras? They took a Polaroid of me. That was it. And as I walked out, and I'm still feeling bad because I didn't get it in Apocalypse Now. And as I leave, I look down, and there was the scene for the actors to read for the character called Luke Skywalker. And in America, a name like Skywalker could also mean an indigenous Native American. Cowboys and Indians, Skywalker is that kind of name. I thought, what a great idea. They're gonna play him as a Native American boy, this astronaut or whatever. I didn't know what the movie was about. But I grabbed that, and I took it with me, went across the street to the famous old Chinese bar, the Formosa, with all the photographs of all the actors on the wall. I had a drink, I read it, and I thought, gee, I'll bet my buddy is right for this. So I went home, I drove over the canyon, Laurel Canyon, drove by everybody. There's Joni Mitchell, smoking a cigarette, Got to my apartment that I lived in with my girlfriend. My girlfriend's name was Jan Fisher at the time. Some of you may know that name. She wrote a little movie called The Lost Boys. And I could hear her typewriter working in our bedroom. She was working on a script. I walk in, and there's a pair of cowboy boots in front of my door. And I go, my friend's here. I go inside, and there on my couch is my buddy, Mark Hamill. And he's watching TV, and he's drinking a Heineken. And I said, Mark, George Lucas, we both love George Lucas. George Lucas is doing this movie. And I didn't say science fiction or anything, as I said, but they said space movie. But Mark didn't know about it, so he got on the phone and he called his agent, and the rest is history. So that's the story. The internet gets this story all wrong all the time. They get it wrong. I tell this story, not because I helped Mark get the part. His agent may have had him already up for it. And Mark was very talented, and he obviously just went in and they loved him. I tell the story like the movie by Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Robert Englund, who would go on to play Freddy Krueger, Jan Fisher, who would write The Lost Boys, and Mark Hamill, who would go on to play Luke Skywalker, were all hanging out drinking Heineken together.
We need to talk a bit about Freddy Krueger, and while we're talking about auditions, how you actually got the part from the beginning, I heard you walk the extra mile on your audition. Could you please?
Well, you know what happened is, again, this is years. This is probably 6 years later. But I'm surfing a lot. So imagine me really, really tan, and my hair really long and curly. It was curly and blonde then. And I went up for this movie. I'd heard of Wes Craven, and I thought of him more like David Lynch than back then. And I went up for the part, and I didn't think I looked right. They were looking for a really big guy, tall guy. And my friend had put his cigarette out in the ashtray. I had a little Datsun 2000. They're like a little MG, a little sports car. And I lit my finger, and with the saliva, it's an old trick I learned from an English actor. I took the ash from the cigarette and I applied it under my eyes. And it made my eyes sink in. A little bit goth, just a little bit, but it looked real. You couldn't tell it was makeup because it wasn't. It was just this watered down gray ash used with my own skin. So that made me look less tan and healthy. Then my full head of blonde curls, but I have very thin hair. I opened the hood of the car, I took out the dipstick, and I took the grease off the dipstick, and I greased my hair back straight so that it clung to my skull really tight. And you could kind of see through the hair around my ears and in the front. And then I wiped my hands off and I went in for the audition. And Wes Craven is a wonderful storyteller, a raconteur. And he was telling me how he saw the movie and how he thought it should be this dream landscape, this sort of topography of the mind that it took place in, and Freddy can get into your secret subconscious and your fears and your desires, and he can exploit them. And I just sat there and I listened to him and I made myself not blink. Remember that game you play when you're kids? Don't blink? And I held my eyes open and they got watery and watery. And I didn't blink and I just stared at Wes. And I think that's how I did it, just the oldest trick in the book. But I got the role, you know, and it's been a great life changer. I remember when I got my first fan mail from Sweden, you know, and I had done V, science fiction, and Nightmare 1 horror. And by the time those two were done, I was already an international actor. And it's just been this great blessing. And you never learn about the blessing and how great it is to be an international actor. They don't teach that in school. They don't teach that in acting class. And when that happened to me, it's the greatest gift in the world. Well, that and herring with mustard sauce.
Talking about like being an international actor, I mean, during your career, you have been awarded several awards, like the 2001 Life Career Award from the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films in USA, and multiple film festivals all over the globe.
Well, Sitges has been very kind to me. There's a wonderful, I encourage all of you to attend it in Spain, just south of Barcelona, the Sitges Film Festival. It's great, and they've always supported alternative science fiction, horror, fantasy. The last time I was there, I sat next to Guillermo del Toro at the screening of his movie about the fish man. What's that? Help me.
Shape of Water.
Yes, I love that movie. Not everybody does, I love it. But I sat next to the director, and on the other side of me, you know who it was? William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist. And another movie that's great that nobody knows about, with Roy Scheider from Jaws. It's a great movie. I'll think of the title in a minute now. It has a terrible title. Pardon? What?
Sorcerer.
Sorcerer. No one liked it because they thought it was supposed to be a horror movie. But it's a remake of the Yves Montand film, Wages of Fear. And I tell you, if you rent it, or you get a DVD, or you download a 4K version of it and watch it on your flat screen, it's amazing. Roy Scheider. Oh, anyway. Sitges, for the audience, just because I don't know if people tell you this, I didn't know about it until I was in my 40s, but it's a great festival and everybody in here would love it.
Yeah, and while we're talking about awards and stuff, in June last year, it was announced that you're gonna get your own star on the Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
So much history as a starving young actor in Hollywood and as a child. And I literally can remember when I told you I was in that company with all the teenage girls that were older? I went to see a matinee with all those girls and a couple of friends of mine. And we went to see a matinee of the original West Side Story on Hollywood Boulevard in the famous Chinese theater with all the movie star handprints outside. And we loved it, we loved it, sharks and then jets. And I remember running out of the theater up the aisles. We were all snapping our fingers, and it was so magical. And we could still hear the music in our head. When you're a jet all the way from your last cigarette to your last dying day. Hey. And we shot out into the lobby. Of course, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Sunlight, California, kind of broke the magical spell. But we all went next door and talked about it all afternoon and had chocolate ice cream sundaes. The ice cream with the hot chocolate poured on it. It was a place that was famous for that. And so I have so much history on that street. My first agent, my girlfriend that wrote Lost Boys, had a job at a cinema bookstore with the best posters you guys have ever seen. Oh my God. Posters all the way back to 1915. OG King Kong from Paris. The French poster, the original, just this great store. So I have all these memories of that street, double bills, seeing 2 movies, and the bargain matinee, 2 Sam Peckinpah movies for $1, And it's nice that my whole career comes full circle back to that street. And I was gonna I thought John Carpenter, he just got his. I thought John Carpenter would use Halloween, because of Halloween, obviously, right? Kurt Russell and Jamie Lee Curtis out there on Halloween he just got his a week ago. So I took the Halloween date. So I'm getting my star at 11 a.m. in the morning on Halloween, October 31st.
I would love to go on, but our time is overdue already. But I want to have one final question from the audience. Do you have anyone? Yeah, you in the front.
Do not ask how long the makeup takes. It takes 3 damn hours. That's it.
What's your favorite death?
Where are you? What was the question?
What's your favorite death?
My favorite
Death scene.
death.
Oh, in the nightmare films, which kill do I prefer, young lady? Phrasing is everything. I like Tina, who you just met. I like smearing her all over the seat. That little wise-ass bitch. And I like the boy, and I like it because it's so politically incorrect. And Freddy is not politically incorrect. He's an equal opportunity killer. But the boy with the hearing aid in part 6, where I pump up the volume, Hey, Joey, you can hear a pin drop. But I like that, and I love the effect of the claw on his ear, kind of taking over, and I think that's just great because it just shows how mean and shitty and unfair and cruel Freddy is. He's a cruel clown. Because I don't want sympathy for Freddy. I don't mind that people are entertained by the films. And I don't mind that Freddy's the logo of this great experience, the franchise of the very original Nightmare films. But he's a bad guy, and we have to remember that. You know, he's bad to the bone.